dropping line. Time for your target of Bro 110, 25, 27,000, egressing. 7-1 targeted there. 110, 25, 26,000, down. 7-4, 1-4, picture. Egresses of Bro 105, 22, 25, mid-4 trail, 5 miles, 18,000. 7-1.
Hello, and welcome back to another ArmA 3 video. In today's video, I will be highlighting a few faction mods that I believe deserve some recognition due to the fact that they add a significant amount of variation from the standard 3 factions of NATO, CSAT, and AAF. Some of these mods completely add new factions, and some of them enhance one of the primary 3 in a way that almost makes them a new faction. Modding takes a lot of time and energy, and a vast majority of these modders do it for free, with the exception of donations taken via Patreon or PayPal. These guys are keeping us in the fight and enjoying this amazing game that so many have poured thousands of hours into. I won't be including mods such as RHS and Cup, as they have tens of thousands of downloads each, and unless you've been living under a rock, chances are you know all about those mods. If I'm wrong and you somehow haven't seen them and are just getting your feet wet in ArmA 3, or would just like me to do a showcase video on them in the future, let me know and I'll be happy to get that project added to my to-do list. At number 10 is the Corporation mod by Davik. Of all the mods on this list, this mod adds the fewest units, however they are some of the most unique looking in ArmA 3 to date. The Corporation comes with a few new elite infantry units that appear to be the typical Black Ops element of a higher organization that wants to quell a situation before it gets more out of hand. This mod works amazingly with post-apocalyptic and zombie survival mods, or even as antagonistic forces in an infiltration mission. The eyes glow bright red in the dark and are honestly terrifying if you aren't expecting them. Davik himself modeled the gas mask and helmets, as well as the red eye glow that gives these units their distinctive look. You really don't want to run into these guys in the dark. At number 9 we have the US Navy units by Massi. A lot of you will know Massi by his other mods like the wildly popular vehicles and NATO and Russian weapons mods, which at one point rivaled Cup in downloads and usage. Massi has continued to add to the workshop collection by providing many excellent unit additions, one of which is his most recent US Navy units. Now, I'm an Air Force guy, but I have to give kudos to good Navy specific content when I see it. These uniforms fit in extremely well with the Nimitz and especially the USS Freedom. Coupled with the ships from the Hellenic Armed Forces mod, and you've got a recipe for a proper Navy, or at very least a ship or two. These uniforms look fantastic. The mod even comes with a few officers in dress uniforms as well as duty and utility uniforms that can be found worn during the operational duty day. The NWU or Navy working uniform honestly looks pretty good, and their AOR 1s and 2s look great as well. There's also the differing colored deckhands for the flight deck operations, as well as a few special operations uniforms and gear for riverine operations. If you're into the naval aesthetic, definitely check this mod out. At number 8 we have the Israeli Defense Forces mod by Glass. I love the IDF, and to date these guys are some of the most hardened combat fighters in the world. The IDF demands all citizens give minimum 2 years of military service, so Israel constantly has a large standing army, ready at a moment's notice. Israel is one of the United States' best allies, and thus you would expect them to continue to receive military support well into the 2030s that ArmA 3 is set in. Indeed, Israel received almost all of the standard NATO vehicles and have been clad in their beautiful desert camouflage pattern. The ground vehicles have been given their distinctive darkened texture as well as their white squad marker denoting which unit they belong to, and they look really good. My personal favorite is the beautiful aircraft liveries that Glass apparently made in paint, though I could be misinterpreting his mod page comments on that. Since so many of the vanilla assets were actually based on real-world Israeli designs like their Merkava, this mod helps put it all together into a believable Israeli faction. At number 7 we have the Malden Defense Forces by Phantom Hawk. This mod comes with a believable local defense force that would have been stationed on Malden alongside NATO forces. The MDF is a sub-faction of the Nogovan Defense Forces, and as such, its aircraft are adorned with their logo. The MDF is a combination of NATO, CSAT, and AAF assets, reskinned to blend in with the Malden terrain, and it honestly looks fantastic. These forces offer a good medium option between a full-on assault force like NATO or CSAT and the paramilitary forces of the FIA. It even comes with its own police force that can patrol the island and establish checkpoints to root out suspected CSAT insurgents. Malden defense troops could also be seen deployed or TDY to train with Altis armed forces units in joint operation exercises as part of their military defense pact, solidifying their strength in the Mediterranean. If you're looking for one of the best defense forces that isn't outfitted with all the best equipment, but still manages to punch harder than its weight class, then this is it. At number 6 is the Devas Turkish Armed Forces mod by Aplion, Devastator, and LTF. Turkey's strategic location sees it at odds with many other countries around it, namely Greece and Syria. Their proximity of lines and national interest constantly put them at odds, engaging each other in airspace violations over the Aegean Sea. Tensions are constantly mounting as seemingly every week Hellenic and Turkish aircraft come head-to-head. Meanwhile, on the Syrian front, Turkish forces back the Free Syrian Army against the forces of al-Assad. Many mission makers love the premise of Turkey versus Syria or Greece, and there is actually a large community of Turkish ArmA 3 players. This mod allows mission makers the ability to create scenarios based around worst-case scenario operations in real-world climate, an attractive draw for some. At number 5, we have new CSAT Overhaul by Davik. A second mod of his on this list, Davik has given the CSAT a much-needed facelift. The new uniforms offer a more contemporary look while maintaining their signature color scheme. Flags on their uniforms are seemingly randomized between the different types of soldiers, showing the diverse selection of nations comprising the CSAT forces overall. Pakistani and Chinese troops stand out amongst these, especially maritime units with their naval camouflage patterns visible on all spawnable seacraft. The super high-tech helmets have been replaced by more modern lightweight helmet designs, most commonly found on today's battlefield. Most of the gear is vanilla equipment reskinned in a slightly altered CSAT camouflage pattern, the most notable change being the combat pants. The top of the thighs have been smoothed out to help break up the wearer's figure even further, and also denotes heavy usage as camouflage tends to fade after extensive use. New CSAT Overhaul brings the OPFOR down to a more appropriate level for modern warfare engagements. At number 4 we have Altis Armed Forces 2017 by Fingelfin ArmA 3. This is a RHS-centric mod, meaning you'll need most of the RHS unit packs in order to use it. However, it's well worth the extra downloads, as this brings Altis Armed Forces to a more modern standard, just like the new CSAT Overhaul did for the opposing forces. The AAF 2017 sub-faction brings a core, active-duty force along with a reserve element. The active-duty forces are outfitted with decently tiered equipment, putting them in the same realm with forces such as NATO and CSAT, but I wouldn't call them a match. Their heaviest vehicle is a BMP-3, so don't expect too much of an armored fist with this faction. Their air wing is somewhat antiquated as well, with the L159 Alka and Kamov Ka-60 comprising its entirety. Although not the hardest hitting, a small air wing is still better than no air wing. Infantry equipment is very mid-tier, allowing for the typical loadouts seen in squads across other factions while staying within a believable realm. AAF forces wouldn't really have access to the best equipment in the world, given their population and GDP of the Mediterranean nation islands, so this mod is very fitting. Overall, Altis Armed Forces is very much a mid-tier faction that shouldn't be too much for either NATO or CSAT to handle, depending on their faction relations. At number 3 we have the Desert AAF Retexture by Anthrax. I absolutely adore this mod, and it has completely replaced my AAF forces. This mod is very simple, but in my honest opinion has a much more fitting look for the Mediterranean desert aesthetic that Altis and Stratasys offer. Many of the modded terrains out there are desert, or have a good amount of desert environments, and this helps the AAF not stick out like a sore thumb. I was always a little bothered by how the AAF was so green. In the military, we love green-based camouflage, but it's more subdued and natural to fit the environment in which it was designed to conceal the wearer. The AAF green textures were way too bright. I know this mod will conflict with the NATO slang of greenback, but this desert texture helps the AAF actually look like they know what they're doing and will greatly help their level of concealment. If you're wanting to get a theater-specific look for your AAF forces, then give this mod a download. At number 2 is the Hellenic Armed Forces mod, or HAFM. The HAFM mod is one of the most extensive and well-developed mods in the workshop. HAFM was started way back in ArmA 1 and has progressed well into ArmA 3. The HAFM base mod provides all the ground forces and aircraft and was initially posted back in 2015. In 2017, however, the mod was given a huge update, and the HAFM mod we have today is its result. The camo patterns on its troops are perfect for the woodland and arid environments, and the vehicles are specific to the current Hellenic armed forces. Greece has gone through a lot of turmoil over the last decade, specifically with their economy. Their military might was in question, But even through the darkness of a faltering economy, the Hellenic military kept watch over the peninsula and Aegean Sea, warding off Turkish aircraft that encroached into Greek airspace. This happens quite often, and the Hellenic military stands ready to fight. The might of Greece, once the most dominant fighting force on the planet, has not lost its touch. And finally, at number 1 is the Iranian Armed Forces mod by ISAR. This mod is exactly what you're looking for if you're needing an Iranian faction for your missions. I've been asked at least 30 times in my videos where I've gotten the F5 Tiger II from, and that's this mod right here. The F5 was actually my introduction into this mod, as I was hungry for an F5 in my mod pack, and this mod has the best I've found thus far. It completely blows the one from the Brazilian Armed Forces mod out of the water in all aspects. The ground forces have a huge amount of camo options that fit the Iranian conflicts, as well as an HK-centric weapon theme, showcasing the most HK weapons I think I've seen in any mod. The G3 hits hard, and the MP5 variants are a lot of fun to use. The aircraft libraries are really awesome, sporting a huge variety of desert schemes for every type of desert and arid environment. The aircraft themselves are specific to the Iranian Air Force, and aside from the F5, the most notable sight is the Iranian F-14, which is the only country still operating the Tomcat to this day, although there are conflicting reports on how many are actually flyable. Iran actually boasts the most decorated Tomcat pilot in history, Jalil Zandi, with 11 confirmed kills, making him the most successful Iranian fighter pilot ever. He and his wife unfortunately passed away in 2001 in a car accident in Tehran. Although our nations are at odds with one another, you have to respect that kill record. If I were to make a mission centered around NATO going up against a Middle Eastern faction, then this would be the one. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me today. I'd like to give a special shout out to my loyal patrons whose donations are greatly appreciated and are allowing me to pursue new avenues of video editing. And if you liked this video, please like, subscribe, and maybe even share this with others you think may enjoy, as this massively helps my channel grow. I primarily make ArmA 3 content and would love your guys' suggestions in the comments section below. I do my best to read and reply to all your comments, and your messages and kudos are a huge factor that drives the channel in the direction it's going. Thank you all so much again for watching, and I will see you in the next video.